Okay, welcome to Intro to Accessibility for Personal Trainers and Fitness Professionals. This seminar is for anyone in the fitness and movement industry, personal trainers, coaches, gym and event space owners, movement practitioners, and whatever else you call your corner of the fitness and movement industry. Accessibility is really everyone's responsibility, and even more important, accessibility is everyone's right. So thanks so much for joining me. I am going to share a lot of information in this webinar. So I'm going to ask that you just commit the next hour or so of your time and engaging to the extent that you can. Like I said, go ahead and participate in submit any questions you might have into the chat. I will keep up with that. And my expectations of everyone here today is that you close out any other tabs you might have open on your computer, turn on do not disturb on your devices, and like I said, ask any questions. I just want to make sure everything I'm sharing today is landing. And if I don't have an answer for something right away, there's a lot of resources that I'm going to share at the end that I'm going to email out to everyone afterwards. And I can also follow up with more information after today. Let's see, I'm going to admit another. All right, our second interpreter is here. All right, and finally, hey, Carissa. So finally, I am asking you all to commit to just showing everyone respect. Please be respectful in the chat if you use it. Use inclusive language and just be intentional and kind. So long as we get along today, we'll all have a good time and we'll learn a lot, and tomorrow will be a more accessible day. All right, so move forward here. All right, a little bit about me. My name is Madeline. I use they and she pronouns. I'm hosting this webinar here today from Lakewood, Colorado, where there's about 1.5 feet of snow on the ground right now. I studied physics at the University of Washington, and I have my master's in infrastructure planning and management. My graduate degree really focused a lot on strategic planning and preparedness in business and continuity, and managing larger infrastructure systems, primarily in the public sector. After I got my bachelor's, I got a job in county government, and I've worked in local and state government for about 9 years now. All of my roles have been in statistical analysis and working with different types of data and regression. And most of my time has been spent in different leadership roles. I've learned a lot about accessibility throughout my professional career as a public servant, especially where I'm at now, working for an agency in the Medicaid industry. Accessibility is really a cornerstone of everything I do from 9 to 5, and I always have opportunities for continuous learning and practice in the space of accessibility. And I'm really excited to share it because accessibility is just so important, especially in the fitness and movement industry. So thank you again for joining me. And as for my role in the strength world, I am a strength athlete, and I have been a competitive powerlifter for over a decade. I have done pretty well for myself in this sport. Last year, I started offering remote powerlifting and strength and mobility coaching. I am certified in functional range conditioning and trained in trauma-informed weightlifting principles. I also have co-founded a nonprofit called Strength for All Bodies, and our mission is to expand inclusivity and accessibility in the world of strength sports. In the future, I'll probably host more events like this under the Strength for All Bodies umbrella, but the reason I'm doing this separate under my coaching business is that this year I'm also entering the world of business coaching for other personal trainers. I just want to share my knowledge and my skill set so all my friends can be more successful personal trainers and providers. So that before we kick off, And while I've got you all here, I just want to give a plug for my upcoming online course, Coach Academy. Coach Academy is a series of over 20 different online courses geared specifically for personal trainers who run their own personal training business. We'll spend even more time talking about accessibility as a topic in Coach Academy as part of EDIA and the larger EDIA principles. But we're also just going to talk about everything it takes to build a resilient personal training and coaching business as an entrepreneur, project management, change management, collecting and analyzing client feedback, client onboarding and retention, a million and one things. I'm super excited about it. It's coming this spring. The first launch is going to be a smaller live cohort over the course of about 3 to 4 weeks. So this beta group will work through the series together with both live virtual instruction and asynchronous content. And the best part about this first group is that it's going to be a lot cheaper. So the first beta group will be at a discounted rate, and then as soon as the course wraps up, it will be available online on my website for purchase, and it'll be more expensive, but it will also be scalable. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can just pick and choose from these topics to make that more accessible. So check out my website where you went to sign up for this, and there will be some more information. But enough of that. Let's get into accessibility for today. All right, so here's our roadmap of today's session. Over the next hour or so, we're going to introduce accessibility as part of the broader foundations of EDIA. And then we will take a closer look at accessibility in physical spaces, fitness programming, and making sure that if you do offer some form of fitness programming to clients, that you know how to tailor your services to audiences of different abilities. And then we'll explore accessibility in digital spaces, and we'll close it out with some final considerations. And I have some resources, like I said, that I will share for you all on your journey of accessibility. All right. So EDIA, you may have heard of EDIA, DEI, EDI. There's different acronyms depending on what you've seen. It stands for equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. You may have seen these acronyms in the headlines. Different states and municipalities actively try and suppress EDIA work. But to me, EDIA work really is fundamental and should be the foundation of your work as a personal trainer and whatever else you do in your life. You may have noticed, especially in the fitness and movement and health and wellness industry, that not everyone fits inside the tiny little box defined as normal. And so it's important, as a client-facing provider, to make sure that EDIA and accessibility are really pillars of your work, so that you can make sure you're providing good service to everyone in your market. And also that is your way of helping make the fitness industry welcoming and inclusive of all bodies and needs. So even if your current market doesn't look very diverse for whatever reason, practicing these things and centering EDIA is really important. So let's set the stage with what these are. Equity. Equity is ensuring that each individual has equal access to opportunities, resources, and recognition in the fitness realm. This involves addressing systemic disparities and adjusting your practices to give everyone a fair chance to participate and reach their full potential in the fitness industry. Some key factors that can be determinants of equity in the fitness industry are socioeconomic status, gender identity, race and ethnicity, age, and body size and ability. Diversity is the acknowledgement and appreciation of the variety of characteristics that make people unique. In the fitness industry, this means embracing different backgrounds, perspectives, and experiences to create a richer, more vibrant environment. By fostering diversity in everything you do as a coach and an athlete, the fitness industry as a whole benefits in becoming even more inclusive, and you can reach a broader client base for yourself. Inclusion is about creating an environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and supported. So it's different from diversity, and it's different from just being welcoming. You can welcome all types of diversity without actually exhibiting inclusion. If you don't have an environment where those diverse peoples feel valued and included and their needs are met, then it's not inclusion. An inclusive fitness environment is one that actively engages participants and helps attract and retain diverse folks and talent into your gym and into your community. And then finally, accessibility. Accessibility refers to the design of fitness programs, services, facilities, equipment, and your marketing and communications that enable individuals of all abilities to fully participate. As entrepreneurs in the fitness industry, this means not only actively identifying and addressing potential barriers to make fitness activities themselves genuinely inclusive, but also making sure that your marketing and communications and your language are accessible as well. So, while we are, of course, here to talk specifically about accessibility in fitness spaces, it's important to note that the fundamentals of accessibility really apply to all types of spaces and platforms and all types of information sharing. An easy way to remember there are 4 principles of accessibility, 4 guiding principles, is the POUR acronym. So just think you're pouring your heart into making the world more accessible, right? So what does this acronym mean? Perceivable, for P, refers to making all fitness services and information available to all the senses, whether it be through sight, sound, or touch. For example, offering fitness class instructions in multiple formats, such as visual guides, spoken commands, and tactile feedback where appropriate. That ensures that information is perceivable to all of your participants. O for operable means that the various components of a fitness facility, including the equipment and digital interfaces, can be used by everyone. So this involves providing alternatives for physical operation, such as adjustable height on equipment, easy to navigate websites or apps, and providing ways to register for classes or access services. U, understandable, involves making sure that fitness programs and instructions are easily comprehensible. So simplifying fitness jargon, providing clear instruction, and offering personalized support can all contribute to a more understandable experience. And ensuring digital content and signage are clear and concise can significantly alleviate confusion. And lastly, robust. Robust denotes that a fitness service or facility should be reliable and versatile in meeting the needs of users with diverse abilities. So equipment should accommodate a variety of body types and fitness levels, while programming should be adaptable to cater for varied abilities. In digital terms, this means websites and apps should function well with different devices, browsers, and assistive technologies. Fundamentally, embedding the POUR principles into our fitness and movement spaces and programming helps us build an inclusive environment that encourages and supports participation from all members of our community. All right, so physical spaces. When you think of accessibility, you might First, think of physical accessibility in terms of physical spaces, such as your gym. So accessibility in physical spaces refers to the design and layout of those physical environments to ensure that they can be accessed, navigated, and used by people with a wide range of abilities. This would include gyms, fitness studios, outdoor training areas, and any other spaces where training might occur. So I think, are there reserved accessible parking spots? Are there stairs or a ramp leading into the building? What does the bathroom look like? Could someone who uses mobility aids comfortably move around and access all the different parts of that gym? In my personal experience with training in specialty powerlifting gyms around the country, I think that accessibility is more often than not an afterthought. So what are some ways that we can work to increase accessibility in these physical spaces? First, entrance and navigation, ensuring that entrance doors, passages, and workout areas are wide and spacious enough to accommodate wheelchairs and mobility aids, and that everywhere is free from obstruction. I think pieces of equipment left on the ground, or if people often move different pieces of equipment, are they left there? Is everything put away so that people can move freely? This would also include the provision of ramps, lifts, and other aids when necessary. Restrooms and changing facilities. So providing accessible restrooms and changing facilities that are designed to accommodate everyone, including those who may require more space or specialized furnishings like grab bars and adjustable benches. You are probably familiar with some pieces of what an accessible restroom looks like. And next, equipment placement and design. Arranging fitness equipment to allow, again, for ample space around machines for easy access and movement. So make sure those walkways aren't cluttered with stray equipment, and that equipment could also cater to various abilities. So think of machines that might be wheelchair accessible, or you can make sure different machines and barbells have instructions and helpful details that make that piece of equipment, understandable and operable for everyone. And so that people know which pieces of equipment in that space are appropriate for them and their ability level. And finally, cost and location. So the cost of membership and the location of a gym are critical factors that can significantly influence the accessibility of fitness opportunities for a wide range of folks. So high membership fees can act as a barrier to entry for many people, effectively excluding those with limited disposable income from accessing quality fitness facilities and resources. This economic barrier can widen health disparities and leave lower income populations more vulnerable to health issues that could maybe be mitigated or prevented through regular exercise and movement in a space like that. And similarly, the geographical location of a gym plays a pivotal role in its accessibility. A gym located in an area that is not easily reachable by public transportation, or one that is far from any residential or commercial centers, that can deter potential members or visitors who do not have their own vehicle or who cannot afford long commutes. So this geographical inaccessibility can limit physical activity options for large portions of the community. So if you own a gym or you have a space like this and you can prioritize accessibility in terms of cost and location, you not only open up health and wellness opportunities to broader segments of the population, but you're also contributing to the overall well-being and inclusivity of your community. So think affordable membership options, sliding scale fees, community sponsorship programs, and being in a strategically chosen location that can be convenient and reachable can dramatically increase access to these services in your community. And if you don't own your own gym, and that's not on the horizon, but maybe you travel to train clients at different spaces, or maybe you plan events, maybe you put on powerlifting meets or something like that. That's something to consider. What is the accessibility of that venue when you look at the location, and maybe the cost of having a meet or having spectators or something like that. Okay. Next, we have accessibility and fitness programming. So this means creating workout plans and fitness routines that can be adapted or customized to meet the diverse needs of individuals, regardless of their physical abilities, age, or fitness levels. So what steps can we take to make sure we're making our programming as accessible to as much of the market as possible? Because sometimes just writing up a program, or maybe you have just a program that people can buy and it's not like a one-on-one tailored situation, you might be leaving folks out. And there might be a lot of different ways to find accessible openings so that, low-hanging fruit, you can reach more of that market. All right. First, I recommend you identify those barriers to participation. If your goal is to remove barriers to participation and to make your services more accessible for your market, you need to do your due diligence in identifying those barriers for your clients as a provider. So start with an initial assessment and consultation. Conduct a comprehensive assessment to understand your client's background, their current level of fitness, health conditions, and goals. This can also include understanding their daily schedule and responsibilities and stressors that could be barriers to regular workouts. Not everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. Maintain open communication throughout your entire relationship. Encourage open dialogue where your clients feel comfortable sharing their challenges. Listen actively to their concerns and be empathetic to their individual situations. You might utilize feedback forms or other client feedback collection methods to ask specific questions about what might be hindering their workouts. Is it just motivation, some physical pain, a lack of understanding of the exercises, or maybe accessibility issues within the gym that they train at or that environment? You might ask clients to keep a workout diary, including their feelings before and during and after exercise. This can help identify patterns of behavior or thought patterns that might also be barriers. And so in addition to ongoing informal conversations with clients, I recommend you also consider scheduling more formal check-ins as well. So that way you have dedicated time to discuss progress and their goals and reassess their barriers and level of accessibility when it comes to training. And utilize your observation skills as a trainer as well. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues that they're giving you. If they're showing signs of physical discomfort, hesitation, or if you're not getting that communication that you are looking for and that you're trying to engage, there's a sign right there, a signal that maybe some barriers aren't being expressed, but they're there. All right. And once you've identified those barriers, it's time to create inclusive programming that caters to a spectrum of ability levels so that you can meet your clients' accessibility needs. So adapting exercises for various abilities, including clients with those physical limitations or chronic conditions, incorporating adaptive techniques and equipment to accommodate various ability levels or limitations. This might include using resistance bands for individuals with limited grip strength or equipment, even if someone only has at-home equipment like resistance bands and some small dumbbells, there you go. You can modify your programming to fit that. Or modifying exercises to be performed while seated, or making them even more low impact. There are lots of accessibility advocates and allies in different corners of this fitness and movement industry who share different ways to program movements and work within different abilities. And that's where I learn the most about accessibility and fitness programming, is finding these folks on social media, following blogs. A lot of people have Patreons so that you can support them financially. It's really important that you follow and support these experts and stay up to date on the different types of programming that you can offer your clients. And again, having an environment with open, safe communication is key. Using clear and simple language when you're explaining the benefits of your inclusive programming and the different methods that you're utilizing. That's really important. Avoid complex jargon where possible, and make sure your cues and your instructions are easily understood. One thing my coach always says is don't cue the lift, cue the lifter. And I think that that's really important. Each of your clients, make sure that you are speaking and coaching in a way that they receive and that is accessible to them. So utilize visual aids, demonstrations, hands-on guidance when necessary to make sure everything is clear and perceivable. And make sure that if you do utilize hands-on approach, that you ask for consent first, or before you touch your client or a mobility aid, ask for consent. All right. Digital spaces. Let's explore accessibility in digital spaces. Web accessibility and accessibility in digital spaces means those technologies and digital assets are designed and developed so that people with disabilities and all types of ability levels can use them. This means that the information shared and the services and platforms available for use must follow those POUR, P-O-U-R principles, and be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And in this context, robust means that the content must be robust enough so that it may be interpreted by a wide variety of users, including those who use assistive technologies. Inaccessibility in digital spaces might look like insufficient color contrast, or let me see. Yeah, insufficient color contrast. For example, all text should have sufficient contrast against background colors. Web content accessibility guidelines suggest a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 for normal text, 3 to 1 for large text. More on that in the resources. Another example would be inappropriate alternative text on images. You might have heard of alt text. So not having that, or having inappropriate alt text on any images that you have on a website or something, that can be a significant barrier for people with visual impairments and those who use screen readers. Or maybe if you have a website, there might not be a logical sequence in the order of interactive elements on your website. So think of anyone who might use a keyboard alone for navigation, or they have a joystick that they use rather than the mouse. They need to be able to navigate between the different interactive elements on the screen and make sure that everything is following a logical sequence. Otherwise, they might end up disoriented on the page. This is something, again, that is especially challenging for users with low vision problems or motor disabilities who depend on assistive technology to navigate the web. So, how do we increase accessibility on the web and in digital spaces? Especially in 2024, I assume everyone has some sort of digital footprint as a as a practitioner in the fitness and movement industry. So this is something that innovative. It's definitely a growing industry for web accessibility. So some tips. That website design. So appropriate website design is the cornerstone of, or appropriate web design is the cornerstone of digital accessibility. So this means having a thoughtful layout, clear navigation, and the use of responsive design to ensure that websites are usable and effective across a variety of devices and screen sizes. By implementing principles of universal design, such as keyboard-friendly navigation, sufficient color contrast, web developers can create a platform that not only welcomes users with diverse abilities to your website, but you'll also be complying with the law, which is also important. Make sure your websites and your mobile platforms comply with these web content accessibility guidelines. I'm going to share a resource guide that includes some helpful links to more specific information about these web content accessibility guidelines. But it is important to remember that just like accessibility in physical spaces, accessibility in digital spaces is the law. If you provide services to the public, you have to comply with the same level of accessibility standards. Next, utilizing technology to enhance communication. So this plays a critical role in bridging the gap for users with auditory, visual, or cognitive disabilities. So innovations such as text-to-speech tools, screen readers, and captioning services transform the digital landscape into a space where information is readily available and readily accessible. These technologies empower users by providing those alternative ways to consume your content and ensuring that communication is not a barrier, but a bridge to information. So just think of, captions on videos, I think is my favorite thing to become popular over the last few years on social media. If you don't have the time or you're not in the right space to listen to someone who might be sending you a voice note or a video to try and coach or provide some service over video, if it doesn't have captions, I don't know if I can watch it anytime soon, or read a transcript or listen to it rather than read a transcript. And so adding those other ways to consume the same piece of information that you're sending is really important. And technology has just gotten so much better, so many free options and free ways to generate transcripts and captions on videos. It's really exciting. All right, offering, sort of in the same vein, offering multiple formats of information. So this ensures that content is accessible to people with varied preferences and needs. Again, providing those text alternatives for visual content, audio descriptions for video, downloadable formats in various forms. Think of PDFs, Word documents, a website, accommodates users' diverse learning styles and accessibility needs. This multiplicity of formats allows users the flexibility to engage with your content in the way that best suits them. The more ways that you can provide for people to consume your content, the more your content will be consumed. So that's whether you are marketing and advertising online, on social media, or just offering your services to your current clients. The best way to communicate with them is the way that they are ready to receive that information. And lastly, following best practices for written communications. So this is essentially for readability, it's essential for readability and comprehension. So this would include using plain language, employing clear headings, and providing concise instructions, and again, avoiding jargon. fitness and movement can be full of jargon and also very medical heavy terms as well, depending on what kind of service you're getting. So really utilizing that plain language, putting things in layman's terms and avoiding jargon is really important. These practices make your digital content more navigable and understandable for all users, particularly those with cognitive disabilities or those who are not native speakers of the language in which you're presenting your information. Overall, creating an inclusive digital environment is not just about that compliance with legal standards, but it's also about building a more connected and equitable world. As our fitness and movement industry grows on social media and in all these digital spaces, and whatever platform might come next, it's really important to center these accessibility principles as you find your digital niche and you start sharing information with your remote and hybrid clients, especially. There's a little more that goes into communicating remotely, as we know, as opposed to face-to-face communication. So you always want to make sure that your message is being heard in the way that you want it to be heard. Okay. So here we go. We've looked at accessibility as part of the broader scope of EDIA. We've defined accessibility in terms of physical spaces, digital spaces, and in fitness programming. And we've heard some tips on increasing accessibility in those spaces. So I just want to wrap it up with some final considerations. First, like I said, accessibility is a right. Access is a civil right. Access to digital and physical spaces and services is protected by law. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, applies to both physical spaces like public gyms and storefronts, and it also applies to web accessibility and digital spaces as well. The ADA was intended to evolve and adapt with technological advances. So every time that you want to hop on the next new software or platform or offer a new type of service to the public, you need to ask yourself first, is it accessible? And how do I make this accessible? And beyond the ADA, so the ADA is the federal, you should also make yourself familiar with accessibility regulations in your state or in your district court region where you offer your services. Because the laws can vary. They can vary by different states and regions. So you really want to be familiar and make sure that you might be complying with the ADA, but is there something else that you need to be doing because of where you are? In the resources, there is a link to a site called section508.org. And they have a lot of great resources. You can check out those state level regulations and see what might apply to you. All right, next. It's always better to be proactive than reactive, especially when it comes to accessibility. That legal landscape of accessibility is always changing. There are always active cases happening that could overturn things or create new laws, things being escalated across the country. But the good news is that there are these tools available. Like I said, in those resources, there are lots of tools available to us to help us increase our accessibility in our business or in our corner of the fitness industry. And it's always getting better. It's always getting easier. It's always getting more accessible to you as a provider to increase accessibility, especially with the big bang that is AI, artificial intelligence. I don't know, it's really exciting how how many tools and resources there are available to us, especially if you are a personal trainer, you're probably a solo entrepreneur, or you don't work within a large existing organization that might have the infrastructure that and the resources to pour into really reinforcing accessibility in your role, and introducing you to accessibility and making sure that you have all those tools. So there are a lot of sites and platforms every week coming up that you can use to check the accessibility of your own website, your own marketing and communication and written materials. So as long as you are staying proactive in that space and innovative and really intentional, although it is the law, it really counts how intentional you're being. So as a small business owner or as a trainer, as long as you are putting forth that effort and into increasing accessibility and complying with laws, that's what's really important. Because it can be costly to, if you're starting from zero, or you're a gym owner with a totally inaccessible space, I think they recognize that it is some work to get into complete accessibility. But as long as you're remaining intentional and you're always trying to be proactive with it, that's what really counts. All right, and finally, increased access benefits everyone. Accessibility as a whole just benefits everyone. When you look at physical spaces, accessible design often results in more spacious and easier to navigate facilities. This benefits those, not only those who use mobility aids, but also parents with strollers, for example, people just carrying large gym bags or using bulky equipment or moving that equipment around. Don't we all prefer a little more elbow room and clear navigation direction? It really benefits everyone. And when it comes to digital accessibility, some examples, again, are those captions on videos. When you can't play audio on your device and listen to your coach or someone speaking, but you don't want to miss out on what they're sharing. It's either scroll by or bookmark it, to maybe never see again, or consume it right there with an alternative method, or text to speech. You might have used that when you're trying to send a hands-free written communication, if you're driving or you got your hands full and you just want to send a quick text to speech text or a voice note even. And then there are those with temporary disabilities. So think of a limb injury, or you lost your glasses or your contacts and you just aren't functioning as you're used to. Or you might experience situational limitations. So maybe you're working in a place where the sunlight is just too bright and you can't see your screen. Or if your speakers on your phone are broken, you would love to listen to that person talk, and it's the quietest room you've ever been in, but your equipment just doesn't work. You need those different workarounds to receive that information. And you also benefit as a service provider. So you benefit in gaining a broader market base by making your services more accessible financially and geographically and physically. Gyms and personal trainers can tap into a wider market. So this includes not only those clients with disabilities, but also those who may have felt intimidated or unwelcomed in a less accessible gym environment, or with a previous remote or hybrid coach or trainer who just didn't provide information in an accessible way, or didn't take those extra steps to identify barriers that maybe the client didn't even recognize before. I mean, that a bad coach or a bad gym is absolutely a barrier to the fitness and strength and wellness and movement world for everyone. And you also benefit as a practitioner by just reinforcing a positive reputation within the community. Businesses are known for their inclusivity and their accessibility, and you can build a positive reputation within your community. This can lead you to increase loyalty with your clients, higher customer satisfaction, word of mouth referrals, and all of which contribute to your success as a personal trainer and entrepreneur. All right, so lastly, I have put together a resource document that I'm going to share with you all within the next 24 hours. There are a lot of different resources that I put in this document. Relevant regulations from the ADA, that's section 508. Some resources on accessibility in physical spaces, something specific to a gym and health clubs and fitness facilities, and then some guidelines and resources on accessible communications. So communicating with and about people with disabilities, a guide to using plain language. Plain language is something that I am always working on myself. I just naturally do not speak or write in plain language. And so it's a constant practice, but there are so many great resources out there. AI is another great resource for writing plain language. You can type up something, put it into ChatGPT and tell it to turn it into plain language or utilize plain language principles, and it will give something back that is a lot better and fits the plain language guidelines, if that's something that you also could use help with. Let's see. Some digital and web accessibility resources. So those web content accessibility guidelines. This WebAIM has a digital accessibility checker. So think of those like looking at contrast, some like alt text elements and stuff. There's also, I don't think it's in here, but if you utilize Microsoft Word or Adobe Acrobat for written communications, there are built-in accessibility checkers there if you have Adobe Acrobat Pro, I believe. But Microsoft Word has a good built-in accessibility checker too, so that if you're just creating Word documents, you can make sure that it won't have any issues for people who might use assistive technologies. And then some resources on accessibility in fitness programming and instruction. So yeah, universal design principles, some extra resources and guidelines. Really, it's super helpful to find those experts, especially on social media, follow them, support them. There's a lot of people, this work has already been done. So with every new resource that comes up, especially for like digital and web accessibility, just remember a lot of the work has already been done. There are experts out there. You don't need to start from scratch. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's going to be easy. And then finally, some additional resources. Disabled Girls Who Lift, that is, they're on Instagram. That's a great resource. And then a podcast for Move United. And then Dave Castro's Accessibility of Effort Guideline Matrix. That's just a little matrix that shows if you've already have like a 5-page document or a 5-page website, how long will it feasibly take you to make that accessible? Because if you already have your own website built out, all these resources already built out, it does take time to make things accessible. And even if it looks accessible to you, just as someone who doesn't use assistive technologies, there's a lot of that back end coding and HTML that is used when people use assistive technologies. So there's a lot of that back end work. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Thanks everyone so much for joining me in this webinar. I hope that you learned something. And like I said, I will follow up with some of these extra resources shortly.